but everything seemed way too planned out and way too, I hate saying this on a murder, but perfect the way everything happened. So I don't believe this was chance. And I believe this person knew that Liz wasn't going to be at work, was going to be alone, was going to be outside, exposed, and that it was going to be an easy target.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to True Crime Unsolved. I'm Miles Reef, and I'm here as always with my friend Sean Cahill. This is the channel where we tackle the stories that TV networks won't touch. Unsolved murders, missing people, the stories without an ending. Sean, what do we have for everybody today?
Hey, Miles. So today we are continuing our look at the Liz Barraza homicide case, which is an unsolved murder from 2019. If you don't know about the case yet, go to the top of this playlist for our videos here, and you will see we have a whole sort of introduction to the case. All the facts we know so far, everything you're going to need to know to probably dive into what we're going to do today, which is an in-depth interview with Michael Ritchie, the lead investigator on this homicide. He's been working it for years, and there's a lot of information that you're going to learn in this interview that I think is probably much deeper than what you're going to find on just like a cursory, Wikipedia dive or Reddit look at this case. So if you're interested in it, if you want to know more, this is for sure one of the prime interviews for you to watch.
Yeah, Michael is an impressive guy. You guys will see when you're watching his interview, but he actually took a long break where he actually went to a different job and came back and retook over the case when he didn't have to. He actually kept tabs on it and actually jumped back in, which I have personally never seen before. So really impressive individual. As always, please remember, any theories that our guest expresses on this broadcast are theirs and theirs alone. We are providing a platform, not an endorsement.
Yeah, right on. And there's so much I want to say about Michael and this awesome interview we had with him, but I think the best thing to do is to let you guys just watch it. So let's go take a look. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us about this case. I know you've talked quite a bit about it. It's gotten a lot of attention, and probably for a good reason. So we appreciate you taking the time to chat with us.
Absolutely. Michael, how long have you been on the case? Is it since day one, since 2019?
Since day one, January 25th, 2019. I was a deputy or investigator detective then. I'm a sergeant now. And we got the call that early Friday morning. Originally, our VCU investigators were called out, VCU's Violent Crimes Unit, because she was shot, but she was still alive. And then once they determined that she was not going to survive her wounds, they called us. And so when I responded to the scene, I was made the lead investigator by my sergeant at the time. And we met two investigators out there that were already there when we got there, and they kind of brought us up to speed on the scene. So yes, I've been in it since day one. There was a period of time from June of 2020 to February of 23 where I was not the lead. I was assisting because I had promoted to sergeant and I had been sent out of homicide back to patrol. And so I was a patrol supervisor. The detective, his name's Wally Wyatt, they tasked him with taking it over. Him and I worked together a lot during that time. And I helped him out a lot with it when I was on patrol. And I always told him, hey, if I come back to homicide, which was the plan, I'll take the case back from you. February of 23, they brought me back to homicide to lead my own squad. And so even though I'm not lead on cases anymore, I'm supervising 6 different detectives. I still have other cases that I look at. And of course, this case, I took it back. And so I still work on it pretty regularly since I've taken it back.
Got it. Thank you for all that. So let's start at the beginning then. When you did get there, when Liz died and it became a homicide, what was your initial impression of the scene and what you guys found there, and what were your initial instincts telling you about the case?
So when I arrived on scene, of course, there was a lot of police activity there. Sergio, the husband, was there. I believe his mother, Margarita, was also there. by the time we got there. Because again, as you understand, it takes a little time for us to get called out there. EMS and patrol deputies respond first. It takes them a little while to make a call, and then of course, violent crimes was called first, and then we were called. So when I first got there, I was kind of walked through the scene by the two VCU investigators that were already there. And they pointed out the husband, Sergio, who was standing outside the car. And he was one thing that I was kind of a little frustrated with. They were letting him, the constables were letting him stand outside of a car that was pretty much parked almost in front of the house. So he could see everything. He could see the blood running down the driveway. And a lot of times in those situations, we don't like the witnesses to be being able to look at the scene. But that was out of my control at the time. And then the next thing that I was told is that, hey, there's video of this whole thing. And I was like, great. So they walked me across the street, kind of cat a corner to a home. And I met with Sergio for a moment, introduced myself, and just said, hey, I'm going to go check out this video, and then I'm going to come back and talk to you. So, and I've told a lot of people this, is when I went and watched this video, and it was very good video in the sense that it showed everything, but of course it was still dark. It wasn't light yet. It was early morning, right before 6 a.m. And so it was still a little dark. So the video was a little grainy, but it showed everything. And we were definitely able to tell that the vehicle, to me, I'm a car person, and it looked like a Nissan Frontier to me. And I initially saw that video and I was like, I'm going to have this solved today. I thought that in my head because I'm like, there's going to be somebody that had beef with either Sergio or with Liz, and that they drove a Nissan Frontier. Because I really, at the time, I felt like Nissan Frontiers weren't that common of a vehicle. Trucks are very popular here in Texas. But it's more Chevy, Ford, and Dodge, the full size trucks. This was a smaller mid-size truck, and so I felt like, yes, there's going to be someone that drives a Nissan Frontier that had a problem with the husband or wife. They're going to know exactly who they are. That was kind of what I thought in my head when I first saw this, but little did I know that was not the case at all. And so, unfortunately, there was no license plate. The video wasn't good enough to get a license plate. Later on, a few weeks later, a month or so later, I did go to a Nissan dealership, and I showed the video of the vehicle to a guy that had been selling Nissan Frontiers for almost 20 years. And he told me some very good facts about the vehicle and what he felt it was. And he called it's either a Desert Runner or a Pro 4X. We ended up confirming later, through still shots of the video that we had of it, that it was a Pro 4X. We could see the decal. And a witness that had called 911 had mentioned a decal that matched that Pro 4X decal. It kind of had a neon type lime green, yellow color to it.
Now, and, Michael, I'm assuming that that's like a certain trim level of the Frontier, right? So,
correct. It's a higher end type vehicle.
Were you guys able to try and narrow that down to,
right,
who had those?
So yes, so at that time, I didn't know yet what type we were looking for. I've learned everything there is to know about Nissan Frontiers. I'll tell you right now, and I'll say it clearly, I fucking hate Nissan Frontiers.
I can't imagine why.
Every time I see one, it reminds me of this case, especially the black ones that are Pro 4Xs that are exactly like it. But every time, I almost got into a fender bender the other day with a Nissan Frontier, and I was like, Liz is talking to me, this. But anyways, I know I'd worked closely with the Texas Ranger on another case, and I reached out to him, and he gave me all the Nissan Frontiers that were registered in the area. The problem is that I really didn't. I've told people this. I felt like I have probably researched and looked at the Nissan Frontier that was involved, but I don't have anything to prove that that's the one that was involved.
That's interesting. Are you saying that just because there was such a small number of them that were in the area, or?
Well, no, and actually, and I realized there is a lot more Nissan Frontiers than I thought. And the problem is that when you look at a lot of the registrations on the Nissan Frontiers, it doesn't tell you it's a Pro 4X or that it's a Desert Runner or that it's a King Cab or a Crew Cab or that it's four-wheel drive. It
Right.
doesn't give you, and a lot of times, sometimes it won't tell the color. So, um, there was a lot of things it doesn't tell you, and then we would have to run it on a separate thing, Vigilant, where it runs license plates and actually takes pictures, and we would look, okay, that one's red, okay, this one. Another thing I did is I got toll road records from every toll road around the area. I got records of every vehicles that was going through at a certain amount of time, and I had to sift through all that. Same thing. It would just tell me if it was a Nissan Frontier. It wouldn't tell me what color, what type, or anything like that. So I've had to do a lot of legwork in narrowing it down, but I've never been able to really have a list together of Nissan Frontiers and say, okay, these are my suspect vehicles. These are it. Because there's no 100% proof that it went that way or it went a certain way. And so it's been very frustrating, but one of the few known facts of this case is the Nissan Frontier.
Right.
I definitely know it's again used most likely a black. I believe it's a black, could be dark blue, but black is a very common color. White and black are the two most common colors when it comes to vehicles, and it's a black four-door Nissan Crew Cab Frontier Pro 4X, which means it's a four-wheel drive. It's lifted a little bit. It's got bigger wheels and tires. It had the running lights. It had the little fin on top of the cab that does GPS. So again, that's what the Nissan salesman told me, is that it's a higher end vehicle.
Right. I was just gonna say, it sounds like it was like pretty tricked out. Like it
Right.
had a lot of the options on it.
And with the decal the way it was, I believe it's a 2013 to a 2019. I believe in 2012 the decal was different. It was white and red.
Got it.
And smaller. So again, I know everything and anything about the Nissan Frontiers.
Well, I mean, that's a clue, though, right? I would assume, because if it could have been that late of a model, it cost some money. It had a lot of options on it. It wasn't a beat up, work truck or something like that. So I don't.
Right.
I mean, did that help at all? I mean, did that point you guys in any kind of direction?
No, it hasn't yet. Because again, one thing that hurt is that we didn't have the license plate. Another thing too, we didn't have any reports of any Nissan Frontiers that were stolen. And then of course, any of our people that were known to the family, to Liz and Sergio, no one had a Nissan Frontier. There was one coworker of Sergio's, but his was different. His was, I believe, what you call a king cab, which is like an extended cab, still a two-door, but it had an extended cab. Whereas this one was a four-door. And it wasn't a Pro 4X, and it wasn't a four-wheel drive. So it didn't match. So that's the problem, is that we don't have a license plate, so we don't have any way of knowing which Nissan Frontier it was, and then we don't have any suspect or anyone that we've looked at that either had family or had a Nissan, Frontier registered to them. So that's the problem, is that is one unknown thing we have, but we haven't been able to go any further with that of who owned one. And from what I understood in the research I did, is at the time you couldn't rent those vehicles either. I looked at that to where it could have been a rental, and those weren't the type of vehicles that you could rent, is what I was told.
You bring up an interesting point. So let's talk a little bit about the people aspect of this whole thing, right? So we know the car, but it's like, whose car is that is kind of the problem. And so looking into Liz, right, and her husband, obviously, like you said at the beginning, you're trying to figure out who had beef. It's probably somebody who had beef with one of them. What did you find when you looked into their lives and their backgrounds?
So, a lot of times in these situations, that the husband is a prime suspect, and Sergio has been very cooperative. He's never told me no, and I've told him from the beginning, hey, you're a suspect, and he's understood that. And so I've investigated him very thoroughly, and there was nothing that pointed to him being involved. I thoroughly researched both their phones, both Liz and Sergio's phones. He gave up his phone. Liz already had it in my possession. He gave us the passwords. They were both the same password for both phones, and they were both the types where they didn't erase text messages. They just kept them. I read every single text message on Liz's phone. Every text message from beginning to end from every single person that was on there, and I didn't find anyone that was threatening her. I didn't find any evidence of either of them having an affair with another, man or woman. There was no evidence of that. They seemed like they were having a great marriage. They both worked. They had interest in Star Wars and the 501st. They loved traveling. She was very budget oriented, and she paid all the bills. And they liked their life. They didn't have any children. They weren't planning on any children, and so they were seemed very happy. And everyone that I interviewed around them said the same thing, that they had kind of a storybook marriage. I interviewed all of her employees. She worked at a company called Rosen, and she worked kind of what I call a fishbowl, where she worked in an office with 3 or 4 others, and that was it. She really didn't associate with anyone else. Rosen was an oil and gas type company, and she just kind of worked. She was kind of like an analyst, and just went through a bunch of codes and a bunch of numbers from these devices that would go in these oil pipes and would send off, messages if there was any type of, problems, cracks, or any type of deficiencies in the pipe, and she would send it on to someone else. And so there, a lot of people suspected, oh, she might have found out of some type of embezzling or something like that at the company. There was no evidence of that. All of her employees checked out, and they all gave me some good information. And one thing is, I got to interview kind of the lady that used to be her boss that hired her, and that was kind of her best friend at the company. And they had gone out to eat together that Thursday before she was murdered. Less than 24 hours before she was murdered, they went out to eat.
Mhm.
Anyways, we call it in police world, we call it an arrest gesti statement, where someone's just, if you're on patrol, or you're just sitting there and someone just makes a comment without asking them. And she did something like that, and she just made a comment while I was thinking about the next thing to ask her during this interview. She just said they had to know about the garage sale. And so I was like, okay, what do you mean by that? And this is Monday. So this is a few days after the murder. Murder occurred Friday morning. Monday, I went to Rosen, and they were very cooperative. They gave me everything I asked for. All the employees and her coworkers were very cooperative, and they were all distraught. They were very upset because they were all very close. Because again, they worked in a small office together, and knew everything about each other's lives.
Yeah.
And she said they had to know about the garage sale. And I was like, okay, well, expand on that. And what she said is that, look, Liz was a creature of habit. She would arrive here at the office between this time and this time. And so there is no way, if she wasn't doing the garage sale, the killer would have been too late. She would have already been gone. She would have already left the house.
Mm.
So she was like, they had to know about the garage sale. And so when you look at the video too, the truck, the Nissan Frontier that arrives, it never drives by the house until it goes to shoot her. And another thing too, just the timing is impeccable. It arrives a few minutes before Sergio leaves. After Sergio leaves, it's in a position to where it can see Sergio's van leave. As soon as the van leaves, it rolls up, it passes the house, it parks out of view of the Ring doorbell camera that they had, either Ring or Nest. I always get the two confused. And it approached, and of course, they were hiding their identity as well. And we have still not been able to 100% confirm whether this was a man or a woman. I've heard, many different theories from different people, whether it's, police or regular citizens that have called in tips, or sent me emails, or commented on all the videos that have been done on this case. And everyone has their own opinion, whether it's a male or female, but everything seemed way too planned out, and way too, I hate saying this on a murder, but perfect the way everything happened. So I don't believe this was chance. And I believe this person knew that Liz wasn't going to be at work, was going to be alone, was going to be outside, exposed, and that it was going to be an easy target.
Well,
Just
it seems
the
like,
timing is too impeccable.
yeah, I was going to say, it seems like they probably had scouted it out because they knew where to be to watch Sergio leave. They knew where to park, and then they made a pretty good escape too. I had heard that sort of like the ways in and out of that neighborhood were interesting, and the way that that happened was, yeah. Go ahead.
And it's still unclear how they exactly got out, because another strange thing about this case is that they fired 4 times in I don't want to say, I was going to say broad daylight, but daylight was, it was starting to get light outside, but again inside a very tight suburban neighborhood with multiple houses all around, left and right, front and back, everywhere. They shoot a quiet morning. School buses will be coming around soon. And then what they do is they leave. They quickly run back to the truck. They get in the truck. They leave. They got in and out of the driver door, I believe. They drive out to the main roadway that they entered in on, out of the neighborhood. And then they turn around and they come back and they drive back by the scene. And actually, one of the neighbors that I interviewed, and that he's the one that said he's a car guy, works in the car industry. He said he thought it was a Nissan Frontier, and he thought that he recognized the Pro 4X decal on the back. And as he's talking to 911, you hear him say, "It just drove back by." And so it drives back by again. And so I've rarely ever seen that in my homicides that I've, usually when someone does a murder, they get the hell out of there. They don't come back.
Right.
And they actually drove back by and risked being seen or stopped or whatever, if the neighbors would have been outside. And so that was another strange thing about this case that happened. And we're still unclear of why did they do that? So then they went back into the neighborhood, and where it's still unclear of where they actually exited. It is possible that they exited out of a cul-de-sac and got onto the edge of a bayou and then jump out onto the road. The main road is a weird name called Kirkendall, and they could have jumped on the road from there. But we never were able to find out where they exited the neighborhood. We went to every single house in that neighborhood, and we found every house that had video, and we checked every video at every house that could have captured the vehicle coming or going.
That is really, really a huge part of the mystery.
Yeah, it's a crazy story. I mean, for lack of a better word, it sounds like it was a hit, right? Like it was a targeted killing.
That's what I feel. I feel that it was definitely planned out. A lot of times, a lot of murders that we work, a lot of homicides that we work, we're able to gather a lot of evidence because they make a lot of mistakes because it wasn't planned out. Maybe they were maybe just planning to rob them. They weren't planning on killing them. And so they make a lot of mistakes, and they have prior conversations that we get on the phone records, or they leave evidence behind. They drop something, and they're seen by other people. All these mistakes that happen that help us solve these cases, but no mistakes were made here. And one other thing they used too is they used a revolver, so there were no casings left behind.
Yeah.
You can get evidence from casings. For instance, a lot of times it's called NIBIN, is that we can, if we recover casings, they go into NIBIN, and then if that weapon's used again, or if it was used previous, it pops up and it helps us, but no casings left behind. It was most likely a 380 that was used. It was a small to medium caliber. We were able to recover a projectile from Liz's body and from the scene that actually went through her and hit the house and then dropped into the flower bed. So again, that's another thing that 90% of firearm murders or homicides that occur, or robberies or aggravated assaults, they're semi-automatic weapons.
Yeah.
And this one was, of course, like, a revolver. Again, the identity is hidden. They're wearing a coat, most likely wearing a wig. We first called them go-go boots, and then we started calling them stormtrooper boots when we found out about the Star Wars background.
Right.
So, and another thing too, even if we got the license plate, I would bet that license plate was probably fictitious.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, a stolen license plate. So it probably wouldn't have helped us either, because if they had all these things planned out for this, then most likely they had that planned out as well too.
It seems like this one, not only did they plan it out really well, but whatever connection may or may not have been there is so well covered up that you guys haven't been able to uncover it. Not for a lack of trying, obviously. It sounds like you guys did a ton of work on the case and are still looking at it.
Well, yeah, so a lot of times people say, is this a cold case? And really it's not, because in the sense and I tell everybody, there hasn't been a month that's gone by in the 6+ years since this happened that something hasn't been done on this case. Whether it's we've received a tip, whether it's I've had a phone call, whether I've received an email, or a supplement's been typed on it, or me doing an interview with individuals like yourself. Something has always been happening with this case every single month. When I was a patrol supervisor, Detective Wyatt and we went to Miami and followed up on a lead. And of course, it didn't get us any closer to solving it, but it was a box that had to be checked. Another thing that I tell a lot of people that I speak with is that I was a homicide investigator for 7+ years before I promoted. I just made 21 years total with the sheriff's office, and now the last 2+ years I've been back in homicide as a supervisor. So homicide is what I like to do, and this is what I'll do the rest of my career. And I'll tell people this: I'm a very competitive person, and you have to be in this line of work. When definitely in homicide, you have to have definitely a competitive side of you and some grit to be able to deal with this type of lifestyle that we have to live and lead. During my times as an investigator, I kept track of all my cases, and I was very detail oriented, and I wanted to solve all of them. I didn't care if they were a criminal or if they were a mother of 3 or someone like Liz that was a great person, not a criminal. Unfortunately, a lot of the homicides we work, these people have put themselves in that situation by being involved in some type of criminal activity. But
Right.
there are ones like these that really hit home, because Liz could have been my sister, it could have been my wife, it could have been my daughter, it could have been anyone's, loved one. She was just doing a regular thing on her own property, doing a garage sale. But throughout my time as an investigator, I have over a 90% clearance rate. So in Harris County, we're very busy. I would average anywhere from 7 to 10 over that murders or homicides a year that I was lead on myself. And of course, then I would help investigate a lot of other homicides as an assist with some of my partners, because we were in a squad together. But anyways, what frustrates me about this case is that I have over a 90% clearance rate for my career as an investigator, as lead on cases. But the one case I'm known for, and the one case I have to talk about all the time, is one that I have not. Sometimes I say that I can't solve. I started saying that I haven't solved yet. Because
Right.
I'm not giving up on it. I won't give up on it. I'm going to continue to work on it because I want justice for Liz and for her family. Bob and Rosemary have been the greatest. They should teach classes for victims, people that have been, that are loved ones that have lost someone close to them. They have been perfect in their assistance in the investigation and doing everything they can to keep their daughter's name in the forefront of the media, and just in the sheriff's office, at the DA's office, at Crime Stoppers. They've done great, and they've been loyal to me, and they've been great with me. And so a lot of times there's some guilt there with me that they're so great to me, and yet I still can't solve their daughter's case. Whereas I have families that I've solved their case, and if you ask them about me, they say I'm a piece of shit, but I even solved their case, So
Right.
Yeah.
and I think one thing the Nellies though have appreciated about me is that I do stay in communication with them, and even though if I don't have updates for them, I still talk to them, whether it's through phone call, email, or text. And there's not a week that doesn't go by that we don't communicate somehow with each other.
Right.
So that's just another aspect of this case that's very frustrating, because I'm not some investigator that was only in homicide for a year or so and wasn't good at their job and didn't know what they were doing. And I felt like I was very good at my job. And so this is very frustrating. Another thing too is that what I have confidence in, any of my cases that have gone to trial and that I've testified in, I have 100% guilty rate there, where no one has ever been acquitted or found innocent in any times I've testified. So I'm confident too that if I can find out who did this and get charges, we'll be able to take it all the way through.
Yeah.
That's an amazing track record.
So that's just it's just a I just want to let y'all know that that's just another of the many aspects of this case that is very frustrating.
Well, it's cool to see how it's more than just a job you show up and clock in and clock out for. I mean, like, this clearly has affected you, and you've been thinking about it for years, and it matters to you. And I think it's cool for the public to see that side of law enforcement.
Absolutely. And Bob and Rosemary had nothing but good things to say about you to us. Obviously, they wanted us to talk to you. So.
Yeah. My whole family knows about this case. I told Rosemary and Bob the other day that I think it was last year, my youngest son, he brought home something from school and they had to write a story. They had career day and he wanted to be a police officer. And then they had to kind of write a story. And he wrote a story about him being a cop and solving the case
of
this case, that he took it over from me and solved it, or something. So, and he was in third grade at the time.
Yeah.
So even him knowing about the case, yes, it is something that really stays with me. And it's when we had the 6-year anniversary and they dedicated a bench at the park where a tree is planted in Liz's memory. The news was there and they were interviewing me, and it was actually the cameraman asked me, and no one had ever asked me this before, and you guys kind of mentioned it. He says, "Hey, how does this case affect you personally and emotionally?"
Sure.
And I was like, wow, no one has ever asked me that. And I told him it's been very people talk about PTSD, and a lot of us homicide guys and police officers see a lot of terrible things, and so we all struggle with that. And definitely this case has been one of those things that, yes, it definitely has been an emotionally and mentally taxing thing, because it's always with me. It's always in the back of my mind, where it's just like, I really want to solve this. And it's just tough, because I've been down so many rabbit holes with this case where I thought that maybe we were onto something, and then it's just, it hasn't. And we really haven't gotten that one tip. We do have, and there's so many different people that I've interviewed with, that we do have a few evidentiary items and things that we are keeping close to the vest, because we have to keep things, some of the confidential, because if we do get someone that calls in and say, "Hey, I know who did it," and they say, "I know who did it because of this and this," we're going to know we're dealing with somebody that really knows what they're talking about. Either they were told they were the one that did it, or they were told by someone that was there, they know something about it. So
right.
We do have a few things that it's almost like though they would help tremendously on the backside once we get a defendant or suspect. It will help in the trial portion of it, but it's not helping us find out who did it yet. And
right.
Another thing I want to add is my sergeant at the time, Eric Clegg, best supervisor I ever had. He was my supervisor at the time of this case, and he was a cold case investigator for a long time before he was our supervisor. He's retired now, and I still stay in touch with him. One thing he said about these cases that go on is that at first, of course, like the first 48, time is against you. But then once they get this old, time is on your side. Mm-hmm. Technology gets better. Right. Look at what DNA has done for cases from the 70s and 80s and even 90s. And he says also relationships change. People that were loyal to that person might not be loyal to them anymore, or that person might be dead, or they're in prison, and so someone doesn't fear retribution. So there's a lot of things that can happen that can help us in the investigation with time.
Yep.
But that still hasn't happened.
Guilt starts getting to people, right? If if there's a conspiracy and there's more than one person involved, and someone starts cracking eventually. We were just having that conversation with someone last week, Sean, about another case where
they had a great saying, right? It was like, if it's a secret and two people know, it's not a secret.
Not a secret.
You can only really have a secret if you're the only one who knows about it, because eventually somebody will talk.
Michael,
And I do believe there's more than one person that knows about this.
right.
Definitely.
Yeah, I
Well,
think so.
could you guys see on the footage, was there a driver and a shooter, or was it?
No, it looks like the shooter was the driver. They get out of the driver door and they get back into the driver door. Now, could there have been someone else in the vehicle with them? Sure, but we have no evidence of that, and we believe they worked alone, that they were by themselves.
Can I
That's
ask you,
the thought, but
What are some of the roads that you've been sent down that have seemed like they might have had some credibility where, you know, they turned up dead ends? And if you can't talk about that because things are still alive, obviously I understand, but I'm just curious, like, because it's such a bizarre situation, and like, you know, what could it have been? After looking into their backgrounds and seeing that they were clean.
One of the first ones is, and I'm not going to say his name, so I don't believe he had anything to do with it, but I started getting a lot of tips about the 501st, and that, hey, they seem like a great organization. Some people were saying there's a lot of toxicity there, and that there's a lot of drama there, and there's a lot of kind of, you know, bad people in that organization. Overall, though, it is still, from what I understand, a good organization that does a lot of good things. And definitely Sergio and Liz were two of those people that were doing good things there. But there was mention of this one guy that had kind of outed himself, and he had an issue with Liz and Sergio. He had acted out at a Christmas party right before the murder had happened, and he was a gun person. He was really good with guns, very knowledgeable. He was like a professional shooter and all this. So it seemed like all that would line up. But then I do research on him. The guy's a big dude. He's like 6'5", 6'6". And when you see the video, there's no way that person is 6'5", 6'6". They're probably under 6 foot. You know, because Liz wasn't very tall, and they look maybe a little bit taller than Liz. So I kind of ruled that out. I'm like, there's no way that it's going to be him. Another person was mentioned in the from the 501st that was female, but her characteristics, physical characteristics, did not fit. She was shorter, a little overweight. There was no way that was her. That was the shooter. Another thing was, we did have a lead on a vehicle. When I was sent the initial list from that Texas Ranger, that he sent me all the registration information on all of the Nissan Frontiers, and it was probably in like 5 different zip codes. I researched every single one of them, and that's when I realized, oh my God, Nissan Frontiers, they're way more prevalent than I thought. There's a ton of them. But I looked at every single one, and then I saw one that was registered to a name. And I won't mention the name because, again, I haven't found anything. I wouldn't want to out them because I don't believe they really had anything to do with it. But it was a different type of last name. And I'm like, I've seen that name. I've seen that name. Where is that name? And then I found it in Liz's phone as a contact.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, this might be it. This might be it. And so I looked into that. And then when I found out, no, actually, the vehicle had been sold to someone else, and it was the wrong type of vehicle. You know, so like these people didn't even have the vehicle, just the registration, I guess, with Texas or Harris County hadn't changed yet. And so it was still showing up, belonging. And then it wasn't the right people anyways. It was the same last name, but I couldn't find any relation from those people to the friends. So that was one that I really researched hard. And again, it came up with nothing. One thing that I kind of kept close to the vest in the beginning, but now I've kind of talked about it, is one that I really thought was going to solve the case was a Google geofence using technology. And I had to wait almost a year to get those results back. It took forever. It took about 10 to 11 months for the results to come back. And pretty much what it is you build an imaginary fence around an area that you want using longitude and latitude points. And a Texas Ranger who specialized in this, a different one, but the Texas Ranger that initially helped me on this case, he reached out to me and says, hey, there's this guy teaching this class. I've told him about the case. He's interested in helping you. Can I give him your information? Yeah. So we got together, we wrote up the warrant, and I believe it was the first warrant done in Harris County. And we got it done, and waited and waited and waited and waited. And when we got the results back, it was nothing. But pretty much what it was is that it was supposed to capture a device. If someone's got a device that it would show up every time they went through that fence. And the ranger told me this will work out perfect because they go in and out of the fence 3 different times because they drive in, they drive out. They drive in, they drive out after the shooting. Then they come back, they drive in and drive out. So he said there's going to be because there's no other movement besides that vehicle. So we said, hey, Google, from this time to this time, these 4 longitude and latitude points, give us every device that was in that geofence. And like a computer, a desktop computer, a iPhone, an iPad, whatever could show up that was using and then we got nothing. We pretty much the only ones that showed up was maybe a few that the first responders were using, either EMS or the deputies that responded to the scene. So that was very, very frustrating because I really thought that was going to work, because at the time that was pretty cutting edge technology that was being used and utilized. And I really thought that was going to solve the case for us, because I felt like the shooter, after they left, they contacted somebody and they said, hey, the job's done. And then that person on the other line said, are you sure? And maybe that's why they drove back by to make sure that she was dead.
Right.
So I always felt like the shooter had a device on him, and maybe they still did, but I can't remember exactly.
If they didn't, Mike, that speaks to the level of planning that you were talking about, because so many people get caught because of their phones. I mean, I can't tell you how many stories that I've covered where it was the cell phone towers and that's how they figure it out. Even when people think they're being smart and they leave it in their car or something, they're still able to track it. And maybe this person was just really, really thinking ahead. Like you said,
somebody who is a real actual, like professional contract killer would know not to bring their phone in because they would know that.
Right.
Can I ask you?
So that didn't work either. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, the other interesting thing that I was really curious to get your take on was in the video, right, where we see the shooter approach Liz, there is some sort of an interaction, right? Like there's a little bit of a conversation that happens briefly. And I think the frustrating thing is we can't really tell what it is. But did you ever get a sense, because I'm sure you've watched it hundreds of times by now, did it seem like she knew this person? Did it seem like it was an altercation, or was it a message being delivered to her, right, before the killing? I mean, what do you make of that moment?
So with the Nest doorbell cam that they have, it has video and audio. You see the truck pull up, but then it goes out of view. Then you hear Liz say, good morning. And talking with her parents, they felt that the way Liz said good morning, she didn't know the person, or didn't recognize them. And maybe she did once they got closer, because they were wearing kind of a disguise, is what I believe. And so me personally, with talking with Bob and Rosemary, and just her body language, I don't believe she did. If I had to, be, hey, pressed, hey, make a decision, I don't believe she knew her killer.
Interesting.
And there's only, again, I said 8 seconds. It's around 7-8 seconds. There is some type of conversation, because you do hear on the Nest doorbell cam, unfortunately, it doesn't pick up the conversation. You do hear some garbled type voices, and then you hear the shots being fired, and then you hear Liz with that terrible scream as she's being shot. And so unfortunately, the Nest doorbell, when you're listening to it, it sounds like the ocean. And what I was told is that it's trying to pick up the sound. And the sound is far away and very low, so it's that noise of it's trying to pick up the sound and what somebody's saying. So I got plenty of people, like Sergio had let the video and audio to some of his friends that were computer techie guys, and they were trying to clean it up and and they were sending me, hey, I think they say this, I think they say that, and I'd be listening to it with my earphones as loud as possible, and I'm like, I can't tell anything. I think they're grasping at straws of trying to decide what they were saying. I can't tell anything of what they were saying. So unfortunately, that conversation wasn't picked up. We don't know what was said, but again, it was only 8 seconds. And a lot of times when we've seen more of people that know each other, there's more emotion involved and there's more talking involved before the shooting occurs because there's that emotional connection. And whether they're, a estranged lover or something like that, it's just different. Unfortunately, in my line of work in Harris County, there's a lot of homicides, a lot of murders. I've worked a ton, and I've gotten to see a lot of them on video. And so this just didn't strike me as one to where it was a domestic style where they knew each other, where they knew her.
Or lack of familiarity between them, right?
Right. And again, I always say I could, with this case, I wouldn't be surprised with anything. I could be totally wrong on this, but just in my experience and again, interviewing everyone that knew Liz, that's kind of how I'm basing a lot of my my theories or my hypothesis of why this occurred and and the details of it.
Right. I
Right.
mean, where are you at as far as that goes? Like, I can't imagine how many theories you've had to look at and how many ideas you've had to listen to from people. But like, what as the guy that's been living with this for so long and as a professional, like, what do you think is likely here?
So again, one thing I said to the Nellies, I told them, I said, when we, find out who did this and we charge them, I said, and I told them this early on in the investigation, I was like, be prepared to be devastated. Because I've always felt like it was somebody that knew Liz and it could have been family. And because again, just the timing, everything just worked out perfectly for this person to commit this murder. And just the timing is impeccable, and just knowing everything that was going on and it working out, there was no way it was by chance. And so I just felt like, and then very limited a number of people that knew about the garage sale.
Mm.
And so I've always felt like it was somebody close, and I've always looked at, okay, who 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 benefited from Liz's death. And there's not that many people. Yes, there's life insurance. All right. But Sergio, I guess when I talked to him about it, he knew it was there, but he didn't really know about it. And I told him, hey, no one's going to get the life insurance until we get somebody here. Everyone's a suspect. And to this day, Sergio's never asked for it. It's $500,000. So, and he wasn't, neither of them seemed very money driven. They weren't all about money and buying material things. They were more about trips and spending time with each other and things like that, vacations. So it wasn't like, a lot of times you see that, and there wasn't. And again, Liz, it was all her life insurance and nothing had changed since she had hired on. A lot of times in these like husband and wife murders, you see the life insurance change weeks before the murder.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that. And again, no evidence of either of them having affairs or having boyfriends or girlfriends on the side. No evidence of that either. I'm looking at what I've been doing lately is I'm trying to, and I've done this, I'm trying to talk to people and interview people that maybe I'd gotten to know and talk to in passing, but never officially interviewed them by themselves. Some of the family members on both sides and some other friends and things like that. So I'm looking back. I'm like, okay, what are some things that I didn't do? And I'm trying to do that, seeing if I can get any other ideas or things like that. I did recently do a grand jury subpoena. I guess it's not really anything that is really that, I guess, confidential. But as of right now, I did receive that information. Right now, I'm not saying what information I did receive, but it is something that's kind of interesting. It's another angle that I'm looking at, and I've said this a lot in a lot of interviews in the last few years because I saw the movie and I thought about this case. Y'all ever seen the movie World War Z with Brad Pitt?
Yeah.
The zombie movie. And I like zombie movies. They're entertaining. So anyways, if you remember, he goes to Israel, and Israel was prepared for this zombie attack and this zombie apocalypse type thing. And it was like, why were they ready for it? And I think what it was like the 10th man or the 11th man that it was his job to say, okay, y'all are coming to this consensus and you are all wrong. And this is what really is going to happen. Y'all remember that part or no?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Every time I've said this too, some people don't remember it and they're like, I need to go watch that movie again. Well, anyways, that's what I've tried to do is I've tried to say, okay, let me take a step back and everything that I've been thinking the last 6 years is wrong. Right. Let me try to come up with something else that maybe could be it. And so that's difficult. I have a very difficult time getting around and getting past that this person didn't know about the garage sale and didn't know that she would be there outside alone.
Oh,
yeah. He's doing great. Let's hope he hops back in.
Yeah, he'll come back. He's got another hour. Yeah, there's Michael.
Perfect.
You were just saying you're having a really hard time getting past the idea that they didn't know about the garage sale.
Right. Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. No, you were in the middle of a great thought. It sounded like you had more to say.
Yeah.
And if not, that's okay.
Just because it stopped for a second, I thought I had lost y'all again. Now I see you're back. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to look at different angles and different possibilities of why she was murdered. But again, like I told you, I have a difficult time getting around that whole garage sale and the timing and just the whole particulars about that. But I am still interviewing other people and looking at different angles that are possible.
Yeah, it's a hard one to get around. I mean, look, it's 7:00 in the morning in a suburban neighborhood. It seems like the person knew when her husband Sergio was going to be leaving. And most people aren't out milling around their yards at 7 a.m., right? Like they had to know that she would be out there doing this, or it's a really bad plot. But we know that it wasn't because it was successful. Yeah, it's hard to get around that. It's really hard to get around that one. What are the odds? And then again, if you're looking at the stranger angle, it's like, what are the odds that somebody happened to just have no connection to her at all and was just there that morning and said, "Oh, perfect opportunity for me to commit a random murder." It just.
Well, I was going to ask about that. Right? I mean, it's interesting that you brought that up, Sean, because you always hear about gang initiation killings and stuff like that, which I don't even know if it's true. But I like. If it was random and they didn't know her, I mean, what would explain that to kill someone in cold blood like that without robbing?
Right. That's been brought up too. Like, hey, maybe this was a gang initiation and maybe they just happened to see him by chance. And we did have video of the truck driving around prior to the murder, kind of like the night or morning before. And I believe they were kind of looking at all their ways in and out. And we have video of it from other I don't believe we had any video from across the street. They still never drove in front of her house before, but they drove around in other places in the neighborhood that we were able to find. And we've heard that, but other people said, hey, it could have been robbery, but you saw it. They don't take anything. I mean, it was the beginning too. She had no money. They didn't touch anything. So that's the problem too with DNA or fingerprints. We really don't. That doesn't help us, because they don't grab anything or touch anything. And so they didn't make contact with. They didn't steal anything from her. So it's still the motive is unclear. And another analogy I've said about this case that I've felt is people that do puzzles. I remember I've done a few puzzles in my life. My mom used to enjoy doing puzzles, but like make believe you sit down at a table and you're going to do a puzzle, but you don't know what kind of puzzle. Someone comes in, dumps the box of pieces out, and then takes the box. That's kind of way I look at this case is that I have a lot of pieces, but I don't know what the picture's supposed to be.
Right.
And it would be very difficult to put a puzzle together because a lot of times I know when my mom did or when I did, I see people doing a puzzle, they have the box sitting in front of them. They have the picture sitting in front of them right there. So I don't have that picture of the box. I don't have the box. So that's just something else that I've kind of said a lot about this case that I feel is It's just a lot of pieces, and there's a lot of suspicious and a lot of crazy things that have happened in this case, but it's all circumstantial. There's no hard scientific evidence. There's no quality video of a license plate or a face. There's no eyewitness accounts picking them out of a photo lineup. And really, I don't, again, I've said it, we've looked at Sergio a lot. I don't think we have time to, it's almost approaching 7, but, and it's been talked about a lot immensely about his father, the father-in-law, Oscar. There was a lot of suspicious things about him. And so, but really we haven't had, a prime, I haven't had a prime suspect that I've really been looking at. And that's another thing too. A lot of times in my cases, I have a suspect. I kind of know who did it, but I got to prove it now.
Right.
Here, I don't even know who did it. And the people that I have looked at, nothing. They have zero. Is there suspicious things about them? Sure. Their behavior doesn't seem right. Sure. But there is nothing that would stick in court.
Right.
That would help me. Another thing too, both Sergio and his father took polygraphs and they passed them.
What does this case
And
need,
there was
Michael?
a big thing about Sergio's new wife, that they became a relationship kind of when I was off the case, when I was on patrol as a supervisor after I promoted. Detective Wyatt worked on it. She even agreed to a polygraph and she passed it.
Oh, wow.
I never, there was a theory there that Sergio and his new wife were having a relationship and that they had planned to get rid of Liz so they could be together. And I've talked to Sergio about this and his wife, and there's never been anything that I could believe that was accurate about that theory.
Right. I mean, they've
been nothing but compliant. Like if I was her, I wouldn't even have taken the polygraph. I'd have been like, screw y'all, man. I didn't even know this guy when this happened. I'm not taking no polygraph. But she did, and she passed it. So, again, that's the problem. The people that we have looked at, there's nothing at all that is concrete evidence or anything that could be used.
What do you think is you need here? Like, what's going to break this case? If you had to just take a guess, you've done this for a long time. You got a really good clearance rate. I think, what's it going to take here?
So this is what I've told the Nellies is that, and that's why we continue to do things like this, talk to people like you that do a great job and that have a lot of followers and that listen. We're trying to reach that one person that does know about it and that maybe their relationship has changed or it's finally getting to their conscience that they want to say something, that they want to do something about it. And also there's a lot of money out there too, a big reward through Crime Stoppers. I believe it's up to $50,000 now. There's a big reward.
When I checked, it was $50,000.
Like I told you, we do have some things to where once we do maybe identify someone that I do can help prove that, okay, it is them, that I'm not mentioning, that I'm keeping close to the vest. So once we do have a prime suspect, we could check, do some checks and balances. And if it worked out, we got them. So really, I feel like, it's almost going to take, unless we get some other type of break with scientific technology and things like that, it's going to take somebody coming forward and saying, hey, I believe this is the person that did it, or I know this is the person that did it. And then once we have that person, like I said, I can start looking at them. And I do. And if they are the person, we do have some things that will prove that they are our killer. And I took a class from several years ago. It was in Dallas, and a old school New York guy, well versed, and he's written some books. And one thing he said, a lot of times in these cases, all you need is just a little chance and a little luck.
Mm.
And at this point, there's really another thing too. I want to go back to Eric Clegg, and I would talk to him about this case, who was my sergeant and a cold case investigator. And I'd ask him, hey, have we missed anything? Have I not done anything that, you've seen a lot of cases that didn't get solved? Am I making one of those mistakes that you've seen? And he said, no. And I asked him, I was like, what's the number one thing that you would see in these cases that weren't solved? And he told me, he goes, I got the answer for you. And this is the exact opposite of your case, the investigation just stopped. Whether somebody left Homicide, promoted, retired, whatever, the investigation just stopped and nobody else ever picked it up. So that has not been the case with this. Even when I was not lead on it for 2 years and 9 months, it was still being looked at by Detective Wyatt, and I was still again assisting him. There's also been other individuals that have helped out on this case as well. A lot of law enforcement been involved, whether it's been the Texas Rangers, the FBI, HPD. So many different agencies have helped on this case. And so one day I hope I can get up on a podium and have and be standing there with Bob and Rosemary and be able to announce that we have someone that we've charged that's in custody. And I will have a long list of people to recognize and thank with their assistance in this investigation and on this case.
Right. Yeah, I was just going to say, I hope that you get that break while Bob and Rosemary are still around, and that so they can
Yeah,
get
I worry about that too. Yeah, they're they're not getting any younger. None of us are, of course, but that's one thing I worry about too. I want them to have closure.
Yeah.
I think I want a lot of people to have that I've gotten to know so many great people through the Barraza and Nelly family and the 501st and some of their high school friends and college friends and all kinds of people that were involved in their life and knew them, that they all want, that's a saying that they've kind of created, justice for Liz. And that's kind of what we are striving for here. So that's why I'm always pro anything to deal with this case and to keep it in the forefront, like talking to individuals like yourselves. That I think this is great because kind of these podcasts and the stuff that y'all are doing now, that's the new age, that's
Yeah.
so that's but and the Nellies have been great about keeping in contact and making connections with people like yourselves and keeping their daughter's case
They've been
in the
wonderful.
forefront of
Right.
the media and everything.
It seems like they've done it in a way where they also are sensitive to what you guys are dealing with, because we've definitely,
Yes.
we're with this project that Sean and I are doing here. We're only talking to people who have unsolved cases, and sometimes there's a lot of frustration and there's a lot of finger pointing, and it's understandable, when you're sitting there for a person you can't get an answer. But you guys are dealing with a lot. I've worked with a lot of cops. Sean has too. We know what you guys deal with, and the stress, and like you said, the trauma that you're carrying around dealing with all these cases. It's not like you don't want to solve it. So it sounds like there's a great relationship there, and they've dealt with it the right way, which is great.
And look, there's been times too where we, didn't see eye to eye on some things and kind of gotten not in arguments, but the conversation wasn't pleasant. But I've always told them, look, I understand. I got thick skin. I know we're not always going to agree. Sometimes they haven't agreed, or Rosemary and I haven't agreed on where which direction I was going and things like that and what was being done. And I totally understand that their daughter was murdered, and it's my job to find who did that. And they're going to have some times where they get upset and they don't agree. And I told them, I said, look, nothing y'all do is going to change our relationship. I understand sometimes we're not going to see eye to eye on some things, and that's okay. And it's okay for you to vent to me and be frustrated with me. Hey, that's a part of our relationship, and so again, we've always understood that, and we have been very solid with that. And so Andy Kahn has been great with Crime Stoppers, with really helping guide them to seek different avenues to keep this case alive. So again, fortunately, with the help from people like you guys, and like I said, I really think that's what it's going to take. It's going to take someone coming forward. And then once they come forward, and if they are credible and they give us the person that did this, I will be able to prove it was them. And we will have charges, and we will have justice for Liz.
Well, I guess then I know you got to go in a couple minutes here, or very shortly, but along those lines, I mean, where can people bring information, right? If somebody sees this and they've got something, where can we point them?
Crime Stoppers. The numbers escaping me right now, but I think it's 713-222-TIPS.
We can put it up on the screen too.
And put it up.
Yeah.
For sure.
Contact Crime Stoppers because they'll get the money they'll get the money through Crime Stoppers, because that's how it works. Is that if they call me, they can also call the homicide office, which is 713-274-9100. And that's the homicide office for the Harris County Sheriff's Office, the general number there. But I would encourage them to call Crime Stoppers, because that's how they get the money. That's who I encourage them to call, so they can get money. They can get paid for their cooperation, which
Right.
we and Crime Stoppers would gladly pay them to get justice for Liz and to solve this case.
And just putting it out there for everybody who's watching this, as Michael said, it's the reward is up to $50,000 right now that Crime Stoppers is sitting on. So
it's a win-win to get $50,000 and do the right thing and bring some closure to this family.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, Michael, thank you so much for taking time to talk us through this case and let us know where it's at. And I really hope you guys get some closure on this soon.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you. Yeah.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
That's a good cop.
Yeah, that's a great guy. Yeah, I mean, it really is one of these stories that just so humanizes these guys and what they do, and these women. There's all kinds of people that do this job, and to see how much it matters to them. That it's not just like, oh, thank God I'm not assigned to this anymore.
Yeah,
let somebody else take it on. I mean, this guy was taken off the case for a while and came back to it, and he's still working it and still dealing. I mean, you could tell, and you and I know from dealing with family members and police, it's not always easy to get pulled into this for years and be dealing with that family that's angry and sad and wants answers.
And you got your own life, right? You got
and now you're
in a parking lot waiting waiting to pick up his kids.
Yeah. And now he's running point, on this thing for this other family. That's the worst possible thing that's ever happened.
Taking his little bit of free time out.
Yeah.
Talk to us about Liz Barraza. I mean, that's a good cop.
100%. I love
this guy who cares about his job. You can tell.
I love meeting guys like him.
Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, what a case, right? I think we still have to speak to the family and get their view of things. But after talking to Michael, I mean, it really is a head scratcher. I think what's interesting.
Yeah, so everybody knows, sorry, Sean, but I don't know what order we're going to put these up, but we did speak to Michael first. That was just based on schedules and stuff. And we're actually going to speak to Bob and Rosemary tomorrow, right?
Yep. Well, that was actually arranged by the family. Typically we do the family first, but in this case, they set it up the other way. So I think the big takeaway for me with this whole thing is it seems like it was a hit. I mean, like everything that he walked us through, it's like he said, it's really hard to get around the fact that so few people knew she would be out there that morning. The killer seemed to know when the husband would be gone. The killer was there the day before, driving the neighborhood, scouting. And I mean, like, it could be a hit by a contracted person, or it's just somebody that knew her personally and was in some sort of a disguise or whatever. But it wasn't.
I guess that's the question is like, like speculation may not be Mike's game, but it is kind of part of our game, our job. And it's like, is it eventually going to come out that there was some stuff that Liz or Sergio was into that nobody's been able to uncover that led to this? Or was it just a personal relationship that went so far south and the other person was unstable and they decided to either do it themselves or contract it out? Or was it just a completely random thing, like a gang hit for clout or membership, or because that's the most terrifying thing to me as a husband and a dad, and a person with a lot of people that I care about. The fact that you could literally be setting up a garage sale in front of your suburban home and just get rolled up on and shot 4 times and die in front of your house, and no one can figure out why.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. One thing I thought about too, that's almost like a hybrid of that, or it's that and someone who knows you, is like, there's always those weird cases once in a while you see where it's like, it was someone she cut off in traffic who was just the wrong person at the wrong time. You know what I mean? It's like, so it's not a gang and it's not a total.
What's that movie with Russell? It's like the fat Russell Crowe. Like it's
oh yeah,
new Russell Crowe. It's like Rage or something.
Yeah. Well, I've seen cases where like some guy has seen some woman in a supermarket and that was enough. He just liked the way she looked and followed her home and killed her in her driveway.
Oh my
And it's
God.
like, well, what did she do wrong? Did she know him? No, she didn't. Was it random? Kind of, but the guy stalked her for a while,
So
and it
just like a
became
psycho with a grudge for or like who wanted to have sex with her or something like that.
right, someone who maybe admired her from afar, and that wasn't, she shrugged him off, but nobody knew about that encounter, or like I
Yeah,
said, a traffic thing, and that person followed her home one day and then came back, and like people are pretty unhinged, and I think
for sure. The
that
problem with
stuff's
that, and I'm sure you've thought of this, but the only problem with that I see is that people who are unhinged usually don't remember not to bring their cell phone with them and plan
right.
things out in
Yeah.
such a clean way. I
No,
mean,
I agree.
just
And I mean, even the
clean.
odds of
Killing.
something like that happening are so astronomical. Like the only
Yeah,
reason I even bring it up is because it's like, what the hell else? Like, what's this is such a puzzling case.
this is a really tenacious investigator. Parents that have stayed super involved, and nobody's been able to crack anything on it. I mean, it's crazy.
And I think one of the craziest parts of that to me is that, like, you and I know how much access these investigators get to your life. I mean, like he said, every
Yep.
text message, every email, your bank accounts, with your
Yeah.
social media, every interaction that we have in today's world, there's usually some sort of trace, and they see all of it. And to see that this lady didn't have any enemies, wasn't having an affair, wasn't like cheating someone out of money. I mean, like they know that because they read everything. So
Yeah.
that's what really puzzles it out for me, like,
It's
where did
crazy.
this come from? Yeah.
I mean, listen, not to make light of anything, but if this does end up linking back to the cosplay Star Wars group that they were a part of,
Yeah.
I mean, this thing's going to go down in history as like, the Star Wars Legion murder or whatever.
Yeah. No,
You
totally.
know?
And it's odd because I have like something in me wants to look further into that aspect because that seems to
Yeah.
be the biggest thing in her social life, right? Like
Right. Like
those
that was that exactly. That's what I was coming back to too. When in my head when we were talking to Michael, because he said that they did investigate a guy that they had beef with, and
yeah.
it does seem that was the thing, right? That's how they did charity. That was their social thing. That was where they went
Yeah.
on trips with them and stuff. So most of the people that they run into outside of work were probably through that group, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, of course, first you look at the spouse. Well, it sounds like the spouse is pretty clean in this one, as
Hmm.
far as we can tell. And then you look at the coworkers. It seems like there's nothing there. And then you've got this big group of people who have this sort of niche interest that they all share, but there's all kinds of different personalities in there. And who knows, what else could be dug up. I mean, I'm sure Michael's looked into it like crazy and
Right.
continues to. But to me, yeah, I mean, I'm drawn to that as well. It's a big pool of people.
Yeah.
It's an interesting angle.
It's weird.
It's super weird. It's really weird.
Were they rebel or
I think
empire?
I feel like it was an Empire thing. I feel like
They
I saw some
were they an
pictures of
empire
it.
group?
I
Because
think
then that
so.
speaks to it, right? Like, maybe there were some darker characters in that group because they were like
Drawn to the dark
drawn
side.
to the Sith or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Michael, for doing that with us. And stay tuned, everybody.
Yeah. We will see you on the next one.